Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She's the author of the book Unbroken Life Outside of the Lines, no other than Miss Adrienne Caldwell.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on your show, Daniel. It's a privilege to be here.
Welcome, welcome, Miss Adrian. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Sure. So, I am Adriene Caldwell, the author of Unbroken Life Outside the Lines. It's the story of my life from early childhood to early 20s. And during this time, I was either the witness to or the victim of the sexual assault of a young girl, the drowning death of another child, emotional and physical abuse, extreme poverty, mental illness, homelessness, horrifically abusive foster care, bulimia, drug and alcohol addiction, pedophilia, death, suicide, and even incest. So it covers quite the gamut of childhood traumas. But it is ultimately a story of hope and resilience and the most, uh, triumphing against adversity, overcoming nearly impossible odds.
Miss Adrian Caldwell, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Hoping for more and more empowering books like this to come. And the title Unbroken Life Outside the Line is powerful. What does being unbroken mean in the context of your story, and what are the lines you're referring to?
Sure. So, unbroken doesn't mean undamaged. And in my book, I actually give the definition of unbroken, and it is not tamed, not defeated, not trained for, not fit for duty or service. And life outside the lines, I like to think of a coloring book, just a page in a coloring book, and having the drawing and taking the crayons and going outside of the lines, because if anything is true about my life, it's that it was absolutely outside of the norms, and the typical life experience. So very much outside the lines.
What was the inspiration behind the title? Does it represent a realization you came to, or a mantra you had onto during a difficult times?
Yes. So I originally started with the title Broken People. And the more I thought about it, the more it started to really bother me. And I came to the conclusion that broken is wrong. It's absolutely wrong. I'm the opposite of broken. I'm unbroken. And there's a story or a fact. I can't think of what it's called, but in with pottery, I believe it's Chinese pottery. Broken pottery is often repaired with gold, and the pottery that was broken and repaired with gold is actually made more valuable, more treasured, by being damaged and then repaired with the gold. And I like to think that that is a good example of how my life has been lived and how I've lived my life. Um, I love that as an analogy.
Interesting indeed, Miss Adriana. And how do you define life live outside the lines? Is it about rebellion, authenticity, or something else entirely?
It's about living a life that doesn't fit the norms, the standard, the expected, that that what is typical or customary is not what takes place throughout my life or in this book. That the expectations, the traditional, the expected is challenged. It's not the status quo.
Not the status quo, indeed. And the book is deeply personal. What is the catalyst that made you decide to share your story in the world?
So I went to 13 schools by the time I graduated high school. And when you go to that many different schools, when you move that much in your life, you get very good at meeting new people and having conversations and keeping the conversation always about the other person. I would never talk about myself. And on the rare occasions when I would share a little of my background, I would always hear people say, "Wow, that is so amazing," or "That is so awful. You should write a book." So for the past 25 years, anytime rarely when I would rarely open up to another person about what I've experienced in my life, I would get that feedback. You should write a book. And about 4 years ago, need to give you a little background. So I became a ward of the state of Texas. My mother relinquished her parental rights. So the state of Texas became my guardian until I turned 18, until I became an adult. And when I was around 20 years old, I went back to Children's Protective Services and I asked them for my file. I wanted all of the documents that had been written about me. And they sent me this giant box, and it was full of these two huge stacks of paper. And it included everything from the first time Children's Protective Services was called on my mother in the first grade, to what happened in the sixth grade and how I ended up becoming a ward of the state. It included psychiatric evaluations, monthly therapist reports, and even letters that I had written um, during a foreign exchange to my CPS caseworker and then to her supervisor. And um, it took me 20 years before I was able to get that box of documents out. And I started going through those documents, and I had tried in the years before, I had tried to go through those documents, but it brought up so many of the traumas that I had endured. It was like I was an expert at compartmentalizing and repressing everything bad that had happened in my life. I say that I would put each trauma in a metaphorical box on a metaphorical shelf behind a metaphorical door, and I would just keep it in the past. And when I was finally able to start going through this box of papers, I I was so angry about what had happened to me in foster care that I started reaching out to lawyers, to the state of Texas, to different government agencies, because I wanted something to happen to the foster parent. And I realized that there wasn't going to be any legal repercussions. I wasn't going to get the justice that I wanted. And that's when I started writing. And so it was a compounding of things, being told over my life that I should write my book, knowing that the only justice I was going to get for my story, for my life, for the damage that had been inflicted on me, was going to be through writing my story and sharing my story. So that's what I did. I
And
started writing.
yes, and thank you so much for sharing your story to the world. Was there a single pivotal moment where you realized you had chosen a path outside the lines and that it was the right path for you?
Hmm. A single pivotal moment. Um, no, there have been choices throughout my life where I've had to make the decision that I was going to survive, that I was going to take control of my life, and that I was not going to have my life dictated by others. And I, over the course of the last 25 years, I've I've had these revelations that I had more power than I realized, and that I could exert control and influence in ways that I didn't realize before. So, yeah, it wasn't one single act. It was repeatedly throughout my life being challenged, being confronted with some truly horrific events that I've made the decision to continue on and to not be defeated by what life was throwing at me.
How did you navigate the fear of judgment or criticism from others who might have preferred you stay with traditional lines?
So I am actually terrified about the judgment that I'm going to receive because of this book. I actually received feedback from a couple of beta readers. They say, Adrian, you don't always present yourself in the best light in the book. In the book, it sounds like you're sometimes the villain. And they were telling me this, saying that I should change it so that I sounded like I was always the good guy in my story. And I responded to that and I said, no, there were times where I was the villain, where I was making bad decisions and I was hurting people. And sharing my story, I'm sharing the rawest truth. I am being as honest and vulnerable as possible. And I do come off as the villain in this story. And I've already spoken with my husband and explained to him that the trolls, the haters are out there, and I know that I am going to get people who are going to judge me for the decisions that I made, and that there's going to be negative feedback, people out there, the haters, that are going to throw shade. And I've told my husband that I'm not going to read the comments on social media, um, but I want him to compile any constructive criticism that they may have. So I'm not hiding from it, but I am choosing how I'm going to let it into my life.
Indeed, interesting, Miss Adrienne. And tell us, how do you navigate the other self of you when you are recovering from the trauma?
How do I navigate? Well, I learned years ago that you can't take care of anyone else if you don't take care of yourself first. It's it's the thing they say on the airplane, when the hostess is given the safety speech, put your own oxygen mask on first. And that's what I've had to do periodically throughout my life. I've had to stop and say, I need to take care of me, and I can't take care of anyone else until I am well, until I have looked after myself. And that's not being selfish. It's taking care of yourself and putting yourself in a position to be able to care for others, by being well myself.
Being well, for sure. And Miss Adrian, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season. Abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love Letters in third season, and my movie 101 review and music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss Adrian, for someone who feels broken by their circumstances, what message you hope does your book offer?
Absolutely. My book is a story of triumphing against tremendous adversity. And I want anyone who reads my book to take away that if Adrian can go through all of that and come out the other side and still live life, love life, um, and really survive everything that she has survived. If she can do it, I can do it too.
Definitely, for sure. And Miss Adrian, how does your story explore the relationship between personal suffering and personal discovery?
Uh, oh, that's a nice question. Um, my story unfolds, and throughout the book, um, I actually include quotes from my psychiatric evaluation that was done on me when I was 13 years old. And I include the evaluation, the psychiatric evaluation, at the end of the book. But periodically throughout my life, I've faced obstacles where I didn't know for sure that I was going to be able to make it to the other side. In fact, the book opens, the prologue of the book uh, is my last suicide attempt. And I had a gun, and I put it to my head and I pulled the trigger twice. And I realized that later that evening, my epilogue is the ending of that suicide attempt, where I'm in the psychiatric hospital and I realize that there is a purpose for me on this planet, that I will not be allowed to end my life. I will not be able to leave this life until I have fulfilled my purpose. And I hope by putting this book into the world that I am able to inspire others who are struggling, who are in the middle of just some of the darkest times of their life, that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that just because you are struggling now, it doesn't mean that you're always going to struggle, and that you have more power than you think. Even if it's just the power to control how you view your situation and how you decide to approach it.
Interesting, Miss Audrey. Interesting indeed. And how has writing and publishing Unbroken changed your relationship with your own past and your understanding of your journey?
I've forgiven myself. It's taken me 4 years to write Unbroken, Life Outside the Lines. And I'll be honest, it's been 4 years of hell because, as I mentioned earlier, I had to take out the traumas that I was repressing, the traumas that were tucked away in those metaphorical boxes. And in order to write this book, I've had to look at each one and explore it, not just from the viewpoint or the vantage point of this is what happened to me then, but also how has it impacted who I am today? How has it made me into who I am today? So it's been a journey, and I'd love to say that it was always positive, but writing Unbroken has probably been one of the most challenging things I've ever done. But I'm I'm putting it out there. This is my story to tell. And I want to give it to others, to give them hope, to give them inspiration, to let them know to just keep going, to just take one step followed by the next, followed by the next, that in a very short amount of time your life can be dramatically different, and that you have more power than you realize, even if it's just the power of how you approach your situation and the mentality that you take. You have the power to choose how you're going to view yourself, and the power to make future decisions that are either going to continue uh, your struggles, decisions to self medicate with drugs, with alcohol. Those are going to continue to make your life hell. Or you can make the hard decisions and take steps to to improve your life and to build a life for yourself that, at least for me, I never thought in a million years I would have the life that I do now. I live an incredibly blessed, amazing life. In fact, if you had told the 15-year-old Adrienne that I would have the life that I do now, the 15-year-old Adrienne would have called you a liar, because she could never have imagined the life that I have now. And I want others to see that it's possible for them too. It's not just me. You can go through the darkest night, but in the morning, the sun rises. You have the dawn.
Miss Adriene Caldwell, thank you so much for sharing your book to the world. And can you please invite our listeners to support your Unbroken?
Absolutely. It's available for pre order. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the major retailers. Visit unbrokencaldwell.com, my website. You can view my CPS case files, letters, and visit me on social media: Facebook, Insta, LinkedIn at Unbroken Caldwell.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Adrienne Caldwell, because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Miss Adrienne, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me, Daniel. It's been a privilege to be here. Take care.
Yes, more to come, people. See you soon.